I'm glad you came back. I wasn't sure if you're going to make it, but you did, so good news. Actually, I'm kidding. I wasn't sure I was going to make it, but I'm here, so let's go on. In our previous video on this lesson, we talked about solving exponential equations. Well, now we're going to create an exponential equation. Now you're going to notice that these are very similar to each other in their setup, and it has to be. There's many ways to come up with an exponential equation, some of which we're not going to learn in this class because it's not important. You'll be learning it more in pre-calc. However, we know that the basic exponential equation that we're dealing with is in this form. Y equals a times b to the x. There are some variations on this, but this is what we're going to go with. Okay? So I am telling you that we have an exponential equation that goes through these 2 points. Our job is to find the equation that makes that true. Now here's the good news. I have this point right here, 0, 5. Now let's show you one time what happens. I'm going to take this 0, 5 and plug it into this equation. Okay, so I'm going to take the 0, 5. What is the y value of that point? 5. A, B. What's the x value of that point? 0. And when it's anything to the 0 power? 1. So really this just means that A is 5. Now if we're starting with this assumption that our exponential equation is a times b to the x, the a value will always be the starting value, whatever is at 0. That's where we start. So a will be 5. So now I have this equation so far. I have 5 times b to the x. Well, now I use my second point. And we are going to plug those numbers in. So in y, I'm going to put 3125. And for b, I'm going to put 4. Now, if you're saying that's just 2 points, it could be a linear equation, it could be a parabola, it could be any equation, couldn't it? Yes, it could be. But we have made the statement that we are going to write an exponential function. Okay, so we're making an assumption that this is an exponential curve. And there's only one curve that'll fit between those 2 points that follows this format of ab to the x. All right, so now I'm going to divide both sides by 5. That's 625 equals b to the 4th. There's a couple different ways to solve it now. We can take it to the 1/4 power, or we could do a 4th root, because that's the opposite of a 4th power. However you want to do it, as long as this comes out to be b. Now, I don't expect you guys to do all these by hand. We're going to have some fractions and some decimals in here. So if you got a calculator, go ahead and grab it. The 4th root of 625 is 5. 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 is 625. You don't have to have any of those memorized or anything like that. You've got a calculator, go ahead and use it. So now I know A is 5 and B is 5. Well, they're both 5. That's a little bit interesting. I was going to say unusual, but they're numbers like anything. So there's your equation. Now remember what this is saying is we're starting out with the number 5. And our growth factor is 5. So every time x goes up by 1, we multiply this by 5. So the second number would be 5 times 5, or 25. Okay. The third number would be 25 times 5, which is 625. Okay, and so on, and so on, and so on. All right. That's how exponential equations work. Now that I spilled the secret about the a, well, guess what? It's right there. A equals 8. Seems a little easy if I give you that, doesn't it? But it's okay. We're just learning the basics of solving the exponential equation, or creating exponential equations. They'll get trickier. Not so much in this class, but they get trickier in pre-calc and in calc. All right, now I'm going to use my next point. I know that 2048, whoops, I don't know what I wrote there. Well, I do know I wrote B, but that was wrong. And that's wrong again. I'm going to fix that one now. 8, there we go, times b to the 4th. All right. So what's that going to be? Well, I'm going to refer to my notes because, I've already did these problems. So, and again, I use the calculator for them all. So don't feel anything about it. Just go ahead and use it. Divide both sides by 8. I get 256. And you might recognize what number to the 4th power gives you 256. You may or may not, and that's okay. If you don't, just take the 4th root of 256, which turns out to be 4. All right. So I know my A is 8 and my B is 4. So my equation becomes 8 times 4 to the x. That means I start out with the number 8, and every time my x moves up 1, I multiply this by 4. So the next number is 32, and so on. Okay? That's how it all works. Oh my goodness. Why am I even putting that? I've got it already. I know that A is 3/4. That's nice. I didn't circle it well, though. Let me try that again. Shouldn't circle something and cut it off. There we go. So now I know so far my equation is y equals 3/4 times b to the x. Now I'm going to use this point to find my b value. So 36.75. Now if that's a decimal, we might as well make 3/4 a decimal. Remember 3/4 is 0.75. And my exponent would be 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.75 and see what I end up with. When I divide that by 0.75, I end up with, nicely enough, 49. Oh, there we go. So what does b equal? And that's 7. Now some of you at this point might question, because I did too, well, if b squared equals 49, isn't b a positive or negative 7? And you're correct. The actual equation to this solution is plus or minus 7. However, b cannot be a negative number ever. Because if it's a negative number, the graph is really incomprehensible. If you think about it's negative 7 to the 1st, which is negative 7. Then negative 7 squared, which is positive 49. Then it becomes negative and positive and negative and positive. And it doesn't flow smoothly. It jumps up and down. But that's just for integers. Imagine even a half or a third. So just trust me. B has to be a positive number. Okay. So our equation will be 3/4 times 7 to the x. And just like the other ones, we start at 3/4 or 0.75, and then we multiply it by 7, then multiply it by 7, then multiply it by 7. That's our growth factor. All right. Not so bad, is it? All right, our A is negative 0.2. So my equation so far is negative 0.2 times b to the x. Let's plug in this point now. Negative 3.125 equals negative 0.2 b to the negative 3. All right, we're going to divide by 0.2. And we will get, hang on, let me see it over here. We get this number, 15.625 equals b to the negative 3. Now the negative 3 might seem a little weird because, well, it's not weird, but it's a negative. We know it means 1 over b cubed. So our answer is really going to be 1 over this. We'll get a third power. So believe it or not, if you have a calculator where you can put in a cube root, you can put in a negative. Because remember, what does that negative do? That negative takes your answer and inverts it to make a reciprocal. So if the answer, this is not the answer, but if the answer was my birthday, 7/12, then the negative makes it 12/7. So this answer, the cube root of 15.625 is actually 2.5 over 1. But then we flip it and we get 1 over 2.5. Now, if you do it in a calculator, it will tell you that the b value is 0.4. There's my a value. There's my b value. So my equation is negative 0.2 times 0.4 to the x. That is how you solve, or not how you solve, how you create exponential equations given 2 points, assuming it's exponential. All right, let's move on. Now we're going to solve inequalities, which is very much the same way that we solved the equations. We're looking for the same base. So if you look at a number like 1 over 36, let's use green for now. Well, it's 6 squared. 6 times 6 is 36. And because it's a fraction, I can make the exponent negative. So these two are equal to each other. Now I got a base, 6 to the negative 2. Well, if I'm using 6, you can probably guess that 6 has got to be my base. Well, 36 times 6 is 216. So it is 6 to the third. And again, if you're not sure, you can go ahead and figure that out. Okay. But here's what I got now. 6 to the negative second, x plus 8, less than or equal to 6 cubed x minus 3. So it's the same procedure. Since I have the same base, I'm good. If I take an exponent and I raise it to another exponent, I multiply those exponents. So negative 2x minus 16. And I got 3 times x and 3 times 3. Now that my bases are the same, I'm good to go. I just set the exponents, I was going to say equal to each other, but they're not equal. I set the first exponent to be less than the second exponent. Okay, it's just simple like that. And then you solve it like you would solve any other inequality. All right, let's see. You want to add 2x or subtract 3x? Yeah, let's subtract 3x. I know you usually don't like negative numbers, but I'm going to have to add the 16 anyway, so I might as well. I'm going to add 16. So I know that negative 5x is less than or equal to 7. Now I'm going to divide by negative 5. Remember, rules like normal. If I divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, I switch the signs. So it's negative 7/5. All right? X is greater than or equal to negative 7/5. So, like I said, just like an equation, it's just we have the inequality sign. I like this one. What's the base going to be? Yes, it's going to be 10. I like 10. And 1,000 really equals 10 to the third. So if I rewrite this equation, I have 10 to the first, which is greater than or equal to 10 to the third to the x. So, well, it's a 1. 1 times anything is itself. 3 times x is 3x. So since the bases are the same, I can compare the exponents. All right, just subtract 2x from both sides. And I end up with this. But we usually write it where the x is first. So if 7 is greater than x, that means x is less than 7. Or if you remember from way back when you first learned these, the fish mouth is opening towards the 7. So it's got to open towards the 7 if I switch them around. I don't know. Where did you guys learn it always points to the smaller number? If it's pointing to the x, it's got to point to the x. Whatever. However you thought about it. When I was young, Pac-Man just came out. So of course, everything was Pac-Man. Okay. Here we go again. Oh, 64. Oh, it's all right. And what's 16th? It's 2 to the 4th. So I put them in terms of base 2, which is great. It works. Again, some of you might be thinking, wait a minute. I know that 1 over 16 is 4 squared. And I get that. And I know that 64 is 4 to the third. So could I use the 4s instead? See, the only difference is, look at the exponents. 6 and negative 4. 3 and negative 2. See how they compare? These are twice as big. If I put them into the equation, both sides, as soon as I divide that 2 out, they're going to be the same. So it doesn't matter which one you use. I'm going to use this one just because we started using that one. I just want to finish it, okay? So 2 to the negative 4 to the 3x minus 4 less than or equal to 2 to the 6th x minus 1. Multiply those through, distribute, and 6x minus 6. Once I know the bases, whoa, I don't even have a base, so that's not good. Okay, once I know the bases are the same, I can set these equal to each other. Not equal to each other, I can compare them because this one's less than that one. All right, so I'm going to add 12x to both sides. So I get 16 is less than or equal to 18x minus 6. I add 6 to both sides. I get 22 is less than or equal to 18x. Zip that up here. Divide both sides by 18. They're both even numbers, so I can make it 11 over 9. And because we usually write the x first, we'll just flip it all around. So x is greater than or equal to 11 over 9. All right. One more. Hopefully you guys are getting this okay. I think you are. All right. 1 over 8. 8 is 2 cubed. All right. 4. 2 squared. We got our bases of 2, so now we can rewrite it. 2 to the negative 3 to the x minus 6 is less than 2 squared to the 4x plus 5. Powers to powers, we multiply, distribute that through. Negative 3x plus 18 is less than, and multiply the 2 through, 8x plus 10. Bases are the same, so we can compare the exponents. All right, let's do this again. Add 3x to both sides. What does that leave us with? 18 is less than 11x plus 10. All right, subtract 10. What I'm going to end up with, and I'll put the answer up here. 18 minus 10 is 8, is less than 11x. So we'll divide by 11. 8 11ths is less than x, which means x is greater than 8 11ths. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is how we do it. Good luck with this assignment, and have a great day.